So, during the last two sessions, we were looking at the Jnana Kanda of the Upanishads, of the Veda. All the Upanishads put together is called Jnana Kanda. There are hundreds of Upanishads, but the major Upanishads are 10 of them. Some people add 2 more Upanishads, so 12. We have examined the thesis of Jnana Kanda. What is very surprising is that though these Upanishads might have been written by different rishis at different periods of time, maybe spread over several thousand years, 3,000, 4,000 years, the thesis of the Jnana Kanda, thesis of all these Upanishads is essentially the same. There seems to be a very, very good convergence on the general points of Jnana Kanda. What does it attempts to say? And this is collectively called Brahma Vidya. And in the last 2 sessions, we have examined the essentials of Brahma Vidya. And we identified something like 6 common points which forms the thesis of Brahma Vidya. In the present session and today, we shall examine how it is to be achieved, how the Brahma Vidya is to be achieved. That is, what is the path. It is called Jnana Kanda traditionally, Jnana Yoga traditionally, or Jnana Marga. So we shall examine the essentials of this Jnana Marga today. We have titled it as Brahmanveshanam, a traditional name, search for Brahman or the spiritual quest. You can call it spirituality. What does spirituality comprise of? This quest. The quote here is from Shankaracharya. He advises right at the beginning that don't undertake this path alone. Without any aid or any help, don't undertake. Shastrajnopi swatantrena brahmanveshanam na kuryat. He says that don't do it alone, even if you are a very learned person. Preferably, you should have the guidance of a guru, and a guru who is a Shrotriya as well as Brahmanistha. Shrotriya means somebody who has learned the Vedas thoroughly, somebody who knows the Vedas through and through. What is the essential thesis of that? And how is it presented? What are the various steps to be taken according to the Vedas? This intellectual knowledge he should have. He should have spent considerable length of time in understanding these things. It is not just 1 year or 2 years, several years under a competent guru. He should have studied. Such a person is known as Shrotriya. And Brahmanistha means somebody who has realized it. It is said Jnanam and Vijnanam. Jnanam means intellectual knowledge included. Spiritual realization as well as intellectual knowledge together is known as Jnanam. So whatever we are doing, which is an intellectual exercise, this is also Jnanam only. Here the word Jnanam, Jnani is used for people, for persons who have understood the Vedas. But those who have realized the content of the Veda, content of Jnana Kanda, such a person is known as Brahmanistha. By Brahmanistha, we mean that the person who has realized and his lifestyle shows that he has realized. We will see the details of this description further. But with a guru, one has to practice. If a guru is not available, then a student like ourselves should be available for discussion. But don't do it alone. This is the warning given. Yeah, the reason for this is that it is possible that you don't get a comprehensive knowledge when you start reading. It will take a very, very long time to get a comprehensive knowledge, complete picture of the Vedas. The second thing is there could be points in the path where you can get stuck. So you need help from somebody who is very competent to know that you are stuck and to help you get out of those corners. Okay. Today we shall discuss 6 sub-points. Saguna, Nirguna, Upasana, the Guru, the qualities of a Guru. Then preparation is called Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. What are the qualities one has to inculcate in oneself to be ready and for the higher knowledge? Then the actual sadhana, how do you perform? And then the difficulties or the dangers that lie in the path. Then finally, what is the final state? What is the benefit you get? That is called the Phalashruti or Prasada. If more than some 35 files. In the last session, we identified 6 points. I'll recount 2 of them here of the Brahma Vidya. The first and the fundamental point that we mentioned is that this world is a manifestation of divine, of the divine. The creation is a manifestation of the divine. Vishwasya nimitta va upadana karana. The intelligent cause as well as the material cause. Nimitta karana is intelligent cause. Upadana karana is material cause. Both these are Brahman only. This is the fundamental statement of the Jnanakanda, of the Vedas. In fact, Brahman extends beyond the creation. In fact, the description comes in the Purusha Sukta very emphatically, Atyatishtat Dashangulam. He extends beyond the creation in 10 different directions. That was in the first shloka of the Purusha Sukta. And following that, in the third shloka, he again says, Padosya Vishwabhutani Tripadasya Amrutam Divi. 1/4 is creation. 3/4 is outside creation, it says. But the point is very, very clear that creation is a manifestation of divine. That's why we call this a spiritual paradigm. The second point we said is that the creation conceals Brahman. The ever-changing creation, which is called samsara. Samsara means ever-changing thing. Mrityu loka, we say. The ever-changing creation conceals the never-changing Brahman. Therefore, Brahman is not visible. Naham prakasha sarvasya, says Krishna. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogam maya samavritah. Brahman is never changing. Brahman is Sat. His Satchidananda. That is his normal, natural description is Satchidananda. He is Sat. Sat means unchanging. Shashwata Adhisthana is Sat. Chit means Jnanam and Ananda means Anantam. Now, Chit and Anantam both are it is natural to him. It is not an acquired qualification. Not in human terms, in worldly terms, we say he has acquired knowledge. So knowledge is an addendum to the person. It is an attachment to the person. It's an external to him, which he has acquired. But in the case of Brahman, from the point of spirituality, Jnanam is Brahman. Anandam is Brahman. Anando Vyajaneti. Anando Brahmeti Vyajanat. But Sat means unchanging, never changing reality. And this has been emphasized all through the Veda as well as Bhagavad Gita. Because often half the names that we use for Brahman is negative definition. We say Akshara, Avyaya, Amrita, Avinashi, Anadi, Ananta. All these are negative definitions to indicate Brahman is distinct and different from the creation. And we know creation is ever changing. For that, we don't need any reference or proof. We can just look out and see that creation is ever changing. But something that doesn't change is said to be Brahman. Maya or the creation, Prakriti, Mayantu Prakritim Vidhi, Mayanancha Maheshwaram. So Maya is Prakriti and that is Asat as well as Kshara. So Brahman is Akshara and Maya is Kshara. Kshara is ever changing. Now the question arises, how do you reconcile these three statements that we have made here? Creation is manifestation of the divine, yes. And the divine is unchanging, but creation is changing. Now are you saying that in a form of creation he is a changing Brahman? In that case, the emphasis with which you said Brahman is unchanging is questionable. So this paradox is resolved by the Advaita Vedanta by saying that the creation is really not a created entity. Creation is not creation. Creation is a term that we give, but Prakriti is not something distinct from Brahman, projected out of Brahman. It is attached to Brahman. It is not even a creation, it is the power of Brahman. It is called Shakti. So creation is not to be used as a noun, but it is to be used as a noun rather than a verb. It is not a created entity, but a projection. Projection by who? By Brahman. Projection by Brahman of himself, so that the jivas see it as change. From a Brahman's perspective, from a Jnani's perspective, it is not changing. That is why you say that when a person realizes, he goes into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the world dissolves, we say. Another day, I heard Sadhguru mentioning this, that when he first realized in Mysore, in some place under a tree of a Chamundi Betta, for 13 days, he was not aware of the external world. That the world, he is not aware of the world, that world has dissolved. Jnani, it often happens. And in the Puranas, we see Valmiki. Valmiki is supposed to be a rishi. Sorry, he was a rishi, but he was supposed to be that when he was sitting in meditation, he forgot himself. And there were Valmika was developed around him. That is the Hutta. So these kind of things are said. So the world dissolves. Why it dissolves? Because it is a projection, and from a Jnani's perspective, it doesn't exist. It is entirely Brahman only. Since it exists, but does it not exist at all? They say it exists. How does it exist? It exists as a reality for the jiva. For somebody within creation, it exists. It is called Vyavaharika Satta. Satta or Satyam. Vyavaharika Satya. Whereas Brahman is Paramarthika Satya. So the Vedanta defines it in three different ways, three different realities. One is Vyavaharika Satya. Another is Paribhasika Satya. That is, the dream world also exists in a manner fairly similar to the real world. A dream world exists for a dreamer. Likewise, this world exists for us. When you go to dream, it is a dream world. This world is dissolved. It is only the dream world. That is called Paribhasika Satya. And then the Paralaukika Satya or Paramarthika Satya, that is Brahman. So the creation is neither real nor unreal, they say. These are terms used to help a devotee, a sadhaka to understand, don't hang on to the language, but try to see what the language intends to say. It is a paradox which is presented. It is real as well as unreal. It is real for the created entity, the jivas, but it is not real for the jnani. It is called mithya. The word used is mithya. Mithya is not to be translated as illusion. It is not illusion. It is this. What is Prakriti to Brahman is called mithya. So this projection of creation is done using Maya. Using Maya. What is Maya? Maya is Shakti. There are two varieties of Shakti. The Shakti is seen in two ways. One is called Avarana, another is called Vikshepa. Avarana would mean concealment. Vikshepa means projection. Project it as something else. Both these Shaktis are used in the creation by Brahman. Now, this is a pictorial representation of the Jnana Marga. I have written several shlokas there for description. I will come to the details of that one by one. But essentially, it is not an isolated path. It cannot do without karma. It cannot do without bhakti. It's a combination of all the three paths, end to end, I should say, end to end, without leaving the other two. Each one of them is required for the other. So it's a collective path which will ultimately take you to the jnana. That is called Jnana Yoga. This is the traditional interpretation. Traditional in the sense Vedic interpretation. Of course, later on there are several interpreters, commentators said that okay, each path can be treated as a separate path. Okay. Karma is the beginning. See, this whole spiritual journey is actually the jiva trying to reduce its tamas, improve its sattva. That is the spiritual evolutionary path. So normally a person in the beginning of his spiritual journey, he has a lot of dross accumulated. When I say dross, it is in the form of karma, karma vasana. He has to liberate himself from that dross. If the dross can be a variety of karma vasana, there could be. It can be sattvic, it can be rajasic, it can be tamasic. In the Bhagavad Gita, it classifies karma into three categories and says sattvika karma is good. It will only help you to progress further. But rajasic karma will involve you in the world. It will push you into the world for activity, for the motive of desires, fulfilling those desires. But a sattvika karma can be very strongly binding and may tie your hand and feet. It can be a bondage, very severe bondage. One has to liberate himself from that. So the whole path is essentially, if you are tamasic, you have to become rajasic. And if you are rajasic, you should become sattvic. That is the path of spiritual progress. So the Veda says that you need karma yoga to begin with. Initially, karma yoga has to be started so that until you liberate and your mind becomes clearer, then you can do jnana yoga. But in either case, whether karma or jnana, should be accompanied by bhakti. Bhakti is inevitable. So the three paths are shown here. Initially, on the left, this triangle is karma, this triangle is jnana, and then as you progress, finally, before you attain jnanam, it will be more of jnanam, a lot of jnanam, and a little bit of karma. But bhakti is there throughout as a background. Neither karma nor jnana becomes yoga unless it is attached with bhakti. That is a traditional viewpoint. Yeah. So, yeah. In the Bhagavad Gita, it appears to me as if Krishna has made a slight relaxation. In a sense, the Jnana Kanda insists very strongly on Jnanam only. It says Nanya Pantha Vidyate Ayanaya. There is no other go except that you merge yourself with or you identify yourself with Brahman, because Brahman is Jnana Swarupi and therefore you have to do it through Jnana. Krishna endorses this point. He says Jnanam Jneyam Jnanagamyam. Knowledge is to be known through knowledge. He endorses this point, but he also says in different places that if you want to pursue karma alone, you can still do that. If you insist that I'll do only karma yoga, you're permitted to do that. That's the kind of cases. He says, karmanaiva hi samsiddhi asthita janakadaya loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. Earlier, Janaka, then Ashwapati, then Ajatashatru, these kind of kings who are karma yogis have attained jnana, and therefore you too can do that. That is what he suggests to Arjuna. So karma is permitted. If you see this diagram, see the karma becomes less and less, and at the edge, at the final edge, it is almost just touching the Atma Jnanam part. It is largely the Jnanam share. But what Krishna says amounts to saying that it is certainly touching this ellipse, Atma Jnanam. So karmanaiva hi samsiddhi asthita janakadaya loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhati. Similarly, the bhakti. Some people, if they wish to do only bhakti yoga, they can do it. This is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Those who are devoted to me with lot of love, for them dadami buddhi yogaptam yena mam upayantite. That is, I will give them buddhi yoga, that is jnana yoga, when it is required, so that they can come to me. So both karma and bhakti can be pursued individually. This is what Krishna says, though the traditional viewpoint is that all the three have to be there. But even Advaitis like Shankaracharya says this, moksha karana samagryam bhakti reva gariyasi. The supreme importance he attaches to bhakti, because without bhakti, jnana yoga doesn't happen. Then he defines bhakti, swaswarupa anusandhanam bhaktiritya bhidiyati. He says what gives you the atma jnanam, what facilitates that is called bhakti. That's his definition. Yeah. So this is the path in general, which is the spiritual progress would reflect parallelly as an increase in sattva. So before Atma Jnanam, you have to be fully sattvic. So sattva sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobhayevacha pramada mohau tamaso bhavato ajnanamevacha. He says sattva sanjayate jnanam. Jnanam happens because of sattva. So, or he classifies jnanam into three categories. He calls them as sattvika, rajasika and tamasic. And sattvika jnanam is seeing avibhaktam vibhakteshu. That is called tajnanam vidhi sattvikam. Sattvika jnana is with which you would see one behind the many. Rajasika jnana is the worldly jnana. But Sattvika Jnana is the spiritual Jnana. This is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So the whole effort is actually to increase your Sattva. Entire effort is that. Urdhvam gachanti tattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasa, jaganya guna vrittastha, adho gachanti tamasa. You should avoid tamas in terms of food, thought, action, and even entertainment. Avoid tamasic tastes, but do rajasi. If you are tamasic already, try to do rajasic things, activity oriented things. If you are already rajasic, then try to meditate and serenize your mind, tranquilize your mind. So the path initially is karma, slowly shift to jnanam as you advance. Here it says, aruruksho mune yogam karma karanam uchyate. In order to mount the yoga, you have a horse, you have to mount the horse, then you will put your foot on the stirrup and then hoist yourself on the back of the horse. So in order to do that, upon the yoga, he says that you have to do karma. And once you are mounted, he says, yoga rudasya tasyaiva shama karanam muchyate. Shama means serenity. After that, you'll have to meditate. So these things go side by side, but then as you advance, you have to take a call and shift yourself to the Jnana Marga. This is Saguna Nirguna Upasana. There is a pointed question which Arjuna asks to Krishna. He says, which one is better? Shall I worship the Lord as Avyaya, Akshara, Achintya, that Lord, that is impersonal Brahman, or shall I worship my Ishtadaiva? Krishna says, you worship your Ishtadaiva. He said, it is definitely better than worshipping Brahman. Though your final destination is Brahman, you will have to grow. You can't go to the next stair, next floor, unless you climb the steps. And the steps that you climb are through the worship of your deity, your Ishtadaiva. But as you worship a deity, the deity is within creation, within Maya. All the deities that we worship, personalized deities, they are within Maya. And they have certain attributes, special attributes. Like Ganesha has Vigna Vinasha as a special attribute. So Vishnu has riches and Durga has power, and there are special attributes. So if you worship a specific deity, you will start acquiring those qualities. But you should also aspire to acquire Jnanam, which is behind these deities. That is the path which Krishna directs. Otherwise, he says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitrun Yanti Pitruvrata. Those who worship the Devas will go to the Devas. Who worship the Pitrus will go to the Pitrus. Bhutani Yanti Bhutejya, Yanti Madhyaji Nopimam. If you worship me, you will come to me. When he says me, he is not referring to the personalized God. He says, Avajananti ma mudha manushi tanumashritam. Looking at me in human form, people think that I am confined only to this. He says, Avajananti ma mudha manushi tanumashritam. Parambhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. I am the Lord of creation. That people don't realize. If they don't realize, but to seek to me, Krishna, in a very personal sense, and seek only that, then you will get only that. Natu mam abhijananti tattvena, tattvenatascha vadite. If you don't know who am I, my real nature, then you will continue in samsara. This is what Krishna says. Let us look at Arjuna's question. He asks, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktas tvam paryupasate. Those devotees who ever steadfast, satata yuktaye, bhaktas pariyupasate. Thus worship you, and also those who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest Brahman. Which of them is superior in yoga? Krishna replies, he says, Maya Veshya Mano Yema Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopeta Aste Me Yuktatama Mata. Those who fixing their mind on me, Maya Veshya Mana, fixing their mind upon me, ever steadfast, Nitya Yukta. It is a continuous process. You are always engaged, connected to the Lord, Nitya Yukta. Endowed with supreme faith, Paraya Upeta Shraddhaya. They worship me in faith. These, in my opinion, are the best in yoga. Yukta Tama Mataha. This is called Saguna Upasana. Any item within creation worshipped is called Saguna Upasana. What is better? Is it Saguna or Nirguna? Krishna says emphatically that it is Saguna Upasana which is good. Good in the sense it yields result quickly and stabilizes your faith. And then slowly you have to advance towards Nirguna Upasana. Those who worship the imperishable, the undefinable, the unmanifest, the omnipresent, the unthinkable, the immovable, the unchangeable, and the eternal, having restrained all the senses, even-minded everywhere, engaged in the welfare of all beings, verily they also come unto me. He doesn't deprecate it if you can do it. But then he says it is difficult. Greater indeed is their trouble. Klesho adhikataram. He says, it is their trouble is more. Klesha means difficulty. Who have set their heart on the Avyakta Brahma. Avyakta hi gatir dukkham, he says. Dehavat viravapyate. For the goal is very hard to reach. Not that which is conceived by the mind, but that which conceives the mind is conceived. This is Kena Upanishad. It says that finally, yes, finally you have to reach there. Kena Upanishad says this, not that which is conceived by the mind. Whatever is conceived by the mind is within creation. But that by which the mind is conceived, that is Brahman, know that alone is Brahman, which you are, and not these gods whom men worship here. Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi. Tvam Vidhi. You are that. Nedam Yadida Upasate. What you worship here is not Brahman, but you should worship Brahman. That is you only. That you have to realize. That is the ultimate target. This is called Nirguna Bhakti. Now, Nirguna Bhakti will not be possible without Saguna Bhakti as a preliminary step. And Saguna Bhakti would be incomplete unless you do Nirguna Bhakti and attain moksha. That is the content of Jnanakanda. Now let us look at the requirement of the Guru. Without a Guru, you are not supposed to do, and the Guru should be a Shrotriyam Brahmanishtham, says Mundaka Upanishad. Yeah. I have listed some names here. Adhyapaka, Upadhyaya, Purohita, Acharya, Guru. 5 different names referring to 5 different levels of the Guru. Adhyapaka is the one who teaches a subject. Whether it is a Gurukula or whether it is our schools, a teacher comes to the class, takes a class of 45 minutes or 1 hour, he is called Adhyapaka. And Upadhyaya is somebody who takes care of the ward, takes care of the child. In addition to teaching a subject, he has a responsibility for the individual student. He is called Upadhyaya. Purohita is somebody who takes care of the family. He is a family counselor, advisor, especially on spiritual matters. He has his range is wider. Acharya, very many times we use this word Acharya, like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, etc. Acharya. Acharya has a responsibility for a whole group of people, for a whole community. And Guru is somebody who will guide you on the spiritual path. Who is a Guru? Girati Ajnanam Nashayati. Antaryami Rupena iti Guru. He would appear as though he is teaching you from within. That is Antaryami Rupena iti Guru. Whereas Acharya is one who is an advisor, counselor, guide for a whole community. Like our Mathadishas. They have an entire following for whom they are responsible and they guide them. The definition of Acharya comes like this. Achino ticha shastrartham Acharya sthapayatyati. One who knows the Shastras. Achino ticha shastrartham Acharya sthapayatyati. That is, and he practices them. He knows the meaning of Shastras and he practices them sincerely. Then, and induces others to follow one's own example is called an Acharya. In fact, the Upanishad also speaks about Acharya very highly and says, the one who has an Acharya, he succeeds. He says, Acharyavan Purusho Vedaha. Chandogya Upanishad, it describes why so. It gives a small story on this count. It says that if a person who belongs to Gandhara, the name is referred, the place is referred. Gandhara is Kandahar, which is in Afghanistan today. A person who belongs to Gandhara, he is tied hand and foot, blindfolded, and brought to Malava, that may be near Ujjaini, the central India, and left there, hand and feet bound, eyes bound. He is left there. Then if someone comes and unwinds his bindings and then tells him, well, what do you want? Where do you want to go? Where have you come from? Then the person says, I want to go back to Gandhara. Then he points to the direction in which you are supposed to go. He said, this way is Gandhara, 1,000 kilometers or more. Now you find your way, but go in this direction. Such a person is called Acharya. He may not walk the entire distance with you, but he will show the broad guidelines. He may be competent, of course, he may be competent, he can become a guru because of his learning, because of his Brahmanishtha, but he may not accept that, but he may accept only to show what is the direction, especially when it is a large community, that will be like that. I remember one incident in Paul Brenton's book, A Search in Secret India, in which, Paul Brenton was a British journalist. At a very young age, he came to India, fascinated by yoga. He wanted to know what is yoga and how do these yogis conduct themselves, wanted to interact and learn. So he met more than 25 different yogis across the country, across India. So he wrote a book on that, A Search in Secret India. And at one point of time, he met the Paramacharya of Kanchi. Kanchi Paramacharya, Chandrasekharendra Bharati Swami. He was touring all over the place, and he met him in some point, some camp. So Acharya welcomed him and they had an interaction. And there was a gentleman by name Venkatramani, who was a literary figure. Paul Brunton knew him and he had taken him along to meet the Acharya. So at the end of this discussion, Paul Brunton asked Paramacharya whether he can become his guru. Acharya can become Paul Brunton's guru. Then Acharya said, no, my duties for the community is so much that I cannot take up this responsibility. But you will get a guru, he said. And a little later, he bid farewell. At that time, Acharya called him back, called Venkatramani back and told him, I declined this because I am not his guru. His guru is waiting for him. He is in Arunachala. That is, finally Paul Brunton went to Sri Ramana Maharshi and became his disciple. So the point I am trying to say is, Acharya generally is competent, capable, but he is the leader or counselor, advisor of a whole community, whereas the guru is the one who actually holds your hand and walks the whole distance up to Gandhara. This is Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad is very explicitly saying that Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano Nirveda Mayan Nasti Akrita Kritena. Having tried, having experienced this trying world, Pariksha Lokan, Brahmano, a wise person who is seeking Paravidya, who is seeking Brahmajnanam, realizes the limitations of karma and upasana in his as a tools. Akrita Kritena. Akrita means upasana, krita means karma. Akrita Kritena. To achieve the defect-free goal, which is called the Paramapurushartha, that is moksha, gradually developing vairagya, nirvedamayam. And then he decides to go to a guru. Tad vijnanartham. Vijnana means realization. If he has to realize this karma and upasana is not enough, I need jnanam and I have to go to a guru. So he goes to a guru. Guru me mabhigachet samitpanihi. Samitpani means he carries the fuel meant for the havana, yaga, yajna, havana. That is called samit. And as a token of respect to the guru, one carries that and takes it and keeps it before the guru and prostrates. Guru me vabhigachet samitpanihi. What kind of a guru? Shrotriyam brahmanishtham. Shrotriyam means knowledgeable, intellectually knowledgeable. Brahmanishtham means one who has realized and his lifestyle manifests the fact that he has realized. It's the same thing Kathopanishad says. Ananya prokte gatiratra nasti. Unless I have an exceptional guru, there is no other go. Who is an exceptional? The Shotriyam Brahmanishtham. Ananya prokte gatiratra nasti. I don't have any escape from seeking a guru who is exceptional. This self, if taught by an inferior person, is not comprehensible, which can mislead. There is no other way for comprehending it except from a competent guru, for it is not reached through logic and is subtler than the subtlest. Evam buddhe param buddha. Krishna says that it is subtler than buddhi. So you need to develop that faculty using which you will be able to realize him, which is called dhi. For that development, you need guidance, and that guidance comes from a realized soul alone. That's what Kathopanishad says. In fact, Kathopanishad gives a very severe warning. Krishna also gives this warning. Krishna says rather softly, he says, Daivi Hesha Gunamahi Mama Maya Duratyaya. He says this Maya, crossing this Maya is difficult. It is impossible. Duratyaya. Crossing is difficult. Impossible. That's what it means. He says, Daivi Hesha. It comes from the Lord Himself. It's a manifestation of the Lord Himself. Daivi Hesha. Gunamahi. It contains three gunas. The Sattva Rajatama. Mama Maya Duratyaya. Mameva ye prapadyante. If you surrender to me, Mameva ye prapadyante. Maya metam charantite. You'll be able to cross this sea of Maya. That's what Krishna says. But Kathopanishad says with a stronger accent, it emphasizes, it says, Uttishtata Jagrita Prapyavaran Nibodhata. Stand up and start walking. Don't stop until you reach the goal. What is the goal? Finding a guru. Prapyavaran Nibodhata. Varan means the leader, the supreme guru. He says, Kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya durgam patha tat kavayo vatanti. He says that this path, durgam patha, it is shorn with difficulties, shorn with obstacles. He says it is as hard, as difficult as walking on a razor's edge. Kshurasya dhara nishita. Kshura means the razor blade with which you shave. That is called Kshura. Kshurasya dhara, nishita, sharp, duratyaya, impossible. It is as if you are walking on that, on the razor's edge, difficult. So without a guide, you will find it difficult. It may cut you to pieces. This point is very valid, as we see many people, well-meaning, maybe very good people also, that who have embarked on this path often go astray. I remember seeing one of the gurus, well-known gurus in North India, who had become extremely popular, also very rich. And he would say that I am Brahman, I am the Lord, I have reached. And he would often present himself before his devotees, in the form of wearing a diadem and then wearing a bow and arrow and say that today I am Ram, Sri Ram. And another day he will come with the flute and say that today I am Krishna. And then they would dance. All these things he did, saying that he is Brahmajnani. Then finally he was caught one day for raping a girl of 13 years. This is atrocious, isn't it? This is very startling and shocking. And then he was lodged in Tihar jail and he was often taken to the court. And in between his passage from the court to the vehicle, the journalist asked him that there is a charge against you, is it true? See, his reply was really shocking. He said, it doesn't affect a Brahmajnani. Now, it may not affect a Brahmajnani, but then it affects that girl. So this is what the problem is. The Kshurasya dhara, when I read this, I remember this kind of a thing, that unless you really take care, it can lead you to disaster. What is happening here is that he thinks that he has reached Sakshi, whereas he has not. He confuses his ego with Sakshi. A similar instance happens in Mahabharata. Krishna had come for Sandhikarya, for negotiation on the side of Pandavas. He had come to Hastinapura. He was negotiating with the Kauravas, that is Duryodhana. And Duryodhana makes a very, very pointed statement, a strange statement. He says, Janami dharmam nachame pravritti. Janami adharmam nachame nivritti. And then the next statement is interesting. Kenopi devena hridis sthitena yatha niyuktosi tatha karomi. He says, there is a Lord sitting in my heart, he says. Kenopi devena hridi sthitena. And whatever he bids, I will do accordingly. Krishna was standing in front of him. He doesn't recognize Krishna. But he says that there is a Lord sitting in his heart. Obviously, this Lord is not Krishna. What is it? It is his ego. So very often in this path, people can mistake themselves to be God when they have really not reached that stage. Therefore, it is very essential that you have a Guru. Guru can do two things. One thing is that he can give you a samyak jnana. He can give you a complete knowledge. What is essential that he will tell you first. And then he will go on expanding based on your questions. This is called the view, the perspective view of the field. This is very beneficial for a student. Even in mundane things, I know that it is very beneficial to do it this way and to learn subject from a teacher who knows. Second thing is that he can warn you wherever you get stuck, wherever you can get misled, or if you go on your own, that he can protect you from that. So both these things are the responsibility of a Guru. And this is what our parampara says about Guru. This is from a dialogue between Shiva and Parvati. So Parvati asks certain questions and Shiva answers. One of the questions is regarding a Guru, and Shiva says, who is a Guru? He should have 6 characteristics. Jnanam, Swanubhava, Shanti, Vairagyam, Vaktrutva, Vaktrita, and Dhriti. Iti Shatgunai Aishwarya. He calls this Aishwarya. 6 type of wealth. Yukto hi Bhagavan Shri Guru Priye. Priye is a reference to Parvati. Jnanam is knowledge of the scriptures. Anubhava is experience in life. Shanti is serenity of mind. Vairagyam is free from worldly desires. Dhriti is endurance. If you ask questions, you should not get upset on that. That is Dhriti. The student may take his own time to learn. That is Dhriti. Vaktrita. Vaktrita is eloquence. He should be able to tell what exactly is to be understood. Things like what is Maya and other things are very difficult concepts, so he should not confuse it further. So these 6 qualities are said to be the qualifications for a Guru, spiritual Guru. Okay, now on the part of the sadhaka, he has to make preparations. They are known as sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. Chatushtaya because there are 4 of them. In fact, there are more than 4. In fact, there are totally 9 items identified. They are required, categorized under 4 groups. They are essential preparation for the sadhaka. And you will see that these things in different forms appear in different places. Like Bhagavad Gita says something about Sadguna, and Patanjali Yoga Sutra says something about Yama, Niyama. Finally, you will count all these things there also. But in the Jnana Marga, this is what is said. There are 4 of them said, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. So they are categorized under Vairagya. Vairagya is this dispassion, Viveka, discrimination. I'll presently come to the details. Then Shamadi Shatguna, they say. Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhana. And then Mumukshutva. Mumukshutva means a deep, intense longing for moksha, for spiritual knowledge, that is. A deep longing, without anxiety, without anxiousness, without anxiety. It is not a fret and fume type of longing, but a steady, quiet longing for liberation is called mumukshutva. Vairagya, probably one of the most important sampatti it is. Vairagya is dispassion, detachment from desire for worldly pleasures, objects of enjoyments, such as food, drink, sex, comfort, toxins, and more abstract things like wealth, power, fame. All these things, if one can detach himself, the detachment is very strict, in the sense that he says, if you look at the droppings of a droppings of a crow, what is the kind of revulsion you will get? That kind of revulsion one should get by looking at these worldly affairs. This is what the commentary of one of the commentators. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita refers to this. He says that the trick is really, if you want to pursue spiritual path, the trick is really not to think about those things. Right at the beginning, you have to nip it. He says, if you start ruminating over that, start thinking that, turning it in your mind, then it will pull you. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu upajayate. Sangat sanjayate kama. Kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammohat smriti vibhrama. Smriti bhramshat buddhinasho. Buddhinashat pranashyate. He makes a link of some 8 different stages. He says, Dhyayato vishayan pumsa. The man starts thinking about this. Sangasteshu upajayate. By that becomes a contact becomes attachment. Sanga sanjayate kam. From the attachment it becomes a desire. And the desire is thwarted, obstructed, you get angry. Kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. When you are angered, your buddhi becomes weak. You are covered by illusion, delusion, sammoha. Sammohat smriti vibhrama. Smriti bhramshat buddhinasho. Buddhinashat pranashyati. Therefore, Vairagya is considered as one of the most important sampatti. Second one is Viveka. Viveka is the ability to discriminate, distinguish between the worldly thing and the spiritual thing. Viveka doesn't manifest unless you have some measure of Vairagya. Vairagya and Viveka go together. Vairagya leads, Viveka follows. So it is the ability to distinguish between the worldly and the spiritual. It's called discrimination, but discrimination may not be the full meaning. It says that to distinguish the worldly things from the spiritual things. The conviction that Atman alone is eternal and everything in creation is transient. That is called Viveka. Then Shamadhi Shatkuna. Usually Dhamma is said first, but here it has been traditionally said Shama. Shama means serenity of mind. Mind, when it is detached from the sense objects, attains a tranquil state. That is called Shama. The quietude. But detachment from the sense object should come first. That is called Dhamma. Dhamma is Indriya Nigraha. Withdrawing of both types of sense organs. Say both types, it is Karmendriya as well as Jnanendriya. You have to withdraw both of them, both types of sense objects from the sense objects. Indriyas are withdrawn from the objects and placing them in their respective seats of activity is called Dhamma. Thus, the mind is insulated from the external objects. Once that happens, then Shama follows. So Dhamma first, Shama later. Then this is called Uparati. Uparati means agility of mind. Ability to apply your mind on a particular topic and withdraw from there. The speed with which you are able to do it. Some people are able to do it very well, very well. See the multitasking ability, they say. But some people find it very difficult. If they're upset on something, you can't expect them to come back to normalcy within an hour. That kind of thing. That is not agility of mind. Agility of mind is ability to attach, ability to detach, especially on spiritual matters. You have 10 minutes, can you meditate for 10 minutes? That kind of a thing. So this is withdrawal and application of mind. It's called Uparati. Titiksha is forbearance, endurance of extreme opposites. Okay, I have to meditate today, but it's very hot. Can I withstand that and still do the meditation as normal? Nitya Naimittika Karma, can I do it? In spite of cold or heat, in spite of mental stress, suppose success and failure. So this is called Titiksha. This is the fourth Shatukula. Then comes Shraddha. Shraddha is faith. Faith in the scriptures, that is Veda, and faith in the words of Guru after you have chosen a Guru. You have to choose a proper Guru and then give it a try, give it a shot with 100% devotion. And that Shraddha, that faith is known as Shraddha. And Shankaracharya says that it is not a blind faith. He says, what the Guru says or what the Veda says, think over that, analyze, understand, develop a conviction, and then start your path. Then start on your path. So that is called Shraddha. It is a firm judgment. You have to analyze, understand, formulate an opinion, and that conviction you accept, and then venture on your path. That is called Shraddha. Samadhana is complete focus. Normally, Samadhana means Shama. Normally, in our colloquial language, when they say Samadhana, it is Shama. But in the context of Jnana Marga, Samadhana means complete focus, complete concentration. Sarvada Sthapanam Buddhe. On the object of meditation, the ever pure Brahman or the deity, not for idle curiosity. It is not that, okay, today I will do this. No, it is not idle curiosity. Genuine interest in spirituality caused by Vairagya, Viveka and Shraddha. That is, that kind of a Samadhana focus is called Samadhana. Mumukshutva is an intense aspiration without anxiety. In fact, if you have Vairagya and Mumukshutva, one from the other end, the beginning, and another from the end, then you can lift all other qualities. You can build all other qualities in you. But if these two are missing, it is difficult. If you have Mumukshutva, you are pulling from the front. If you have Vairagya, you have cut off the bondages that are bondages on the sense objects. So you have to cut it off and then pull. So people say, that the masters say, that you certainly require these two extreme points with which you can lift all other qualities, you can build all other qualities in you. But if you don't have Mumukshutva, this is not easy at all. Then sadhana. What is the Jnana Marga sadhana? Yeah. These categories are made for the sake of understanding, but usually all these things are mixed in an individual. There are three things identified. One is called mala, that is impurity, that is a karmic residue which especially the tamasic karmic residue, which can cause you to make errors. I mean, tamas is the responsible for ignorance, delusion, and that impurity can be removed by karma yoga. It says karma yoga. Karma yoga will pull you from tamas towards rajas. Karma is still activity, so it would not pull you to sattva, but it will pull you to rajas. In that direction, it will take you. So to go to sattva, you should start controlling your activities and turn it into the meditative moods, meditative learnings. The second is called vikshepa, that is turbulence of mind. Turbulence happens, it is essentially rajasic. Activity is rajasic, essentially happens towards those desires. They are known as kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsara. So vikshepa is turbulence caused in the mind. It will drive you, it will distract and push you in the direction of worldly pleasures. So how do you control that? That controlling has to start with the jnanam as well as upasana. The more you do upasana here would mean saguna upasana, your rajas will start reducing and sattva will start improving. So this is called sattva shuddhi. Karma yoga for chitta shuddhi, upasana yoga for sattva shuddhi. And then the last one is called ignorance or maya or avarana. It is called avarana. Maya has covered the Lord. So even though your karmic residues have reduced to a minimum, it cannot be completely reduced. Until you attain moksha, it doesn't reduce. Because Krishna says, sarvarambha hi doshena. He says all karma are tainted. All karma are tainted. And therefore it will create fresh karma. So an example is that when Pandavas went to Indraprastha, Indraprastha was given to them as half the kingdom of the Kurus, was bifurcated and given to them. They went to Indraprastha, they wanted to build a capital there. Krishna and Arjuna went and destroyed the Khandava Vana, the forest area there. And destroying means there is a lot of destruction of even animals and birds and other things. This led to problems later on. In fact, Takshaka was the one who has bitten, who bit Parikshita. When that opportune time came, Takshaka avenged his earlier pains, which Arjuna had inflicted upon him. So this karmic cycle is always there. If you do something with a good intention also, it will have negative karmas there. Therefore, entire karma will be washed away and after that you will attain moksha. This doesn't happen. So there will be always karma. But at a certain point of time, as your sattva increases and you are able to see avibhaktam vibhakteshu, you are able to see that. When you see that, the Lord will show grace upon the devotee and he lifts the wheel of Maya and holds his hand. And when that happens, it is called jnanam. And jnanam will destroy all the karma. Yathaidhamsi samidho agni bhasmasat kurute Arjuna. Krishna says, like the blazing fire burns the firewood completely into ash. Jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. That's how jnana will destroy karma. So jnana yoga is normally, in a normal sense, it is essential. It will help you to conquer Maya, avidya, and the last traces of the karana sharira, that is karma, which may not be very serious, therefore it can be burnt by jnanam. In fact, jnanam can burn anything. That means Lord can waive anything. He may or he may not choose to do it. But from the devotee's perspective, one should aspire, there should be a mumukshutva, and then do karma yoga, do upasana yoga, do Jnana Yoga. And when you say all these yoga, the yoga stands for bhakti. That is the path of Jnana Marga. So Karma Yoga is karma plus Yajna Bhavana, leads to Chitta Shuddhi. Karma Yoga is using the control of your Karmendriya and Jnanendriya, and internally surrender the fruits to the Lord. Initially surrender the fruits to the Lord. The next stage of Karma Yoga is do all karma as worship of the Lord. And the third stage of Karma Yoga is that take your position as Sakshi and see that all work is done by Prakriti. But the beginning has to happen with the Karmendriyas. So this is a quotation from Viveka Chudamani of Shankara saying, Yogasya prathamam dvara vak nirodha. The most difficult thing to do is to control your tongue. So vak nirodha, that is where you should start, he says. That is Karma Yoga. Upasana Yoga means worshipping of a deity, sadhana, meditation with bhakti. Without bhakti, it cannot happen. That will lead to sattva shuddhi and chitta ekagrata. It will give samadhana, which is ready for jnana. The mind ready for jnana. And Jnana Yoga actually takes you to the final destination, for which you need sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, cultivation of these qualities. Then Vedanta Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. These are the three stages mentioned. Shravana means listening. In fact, Shravana can include reading also. But the traditional viewpoint, and I think it is correct viewpoint, it is better to take this knowledge from a person who is already knowledgeable, from a learned guru preferably. But if not, somebody who is knowledgeable in certain fields, listening is always a better mode than reading. But otherwise, I would put reading also part of Shravana. So Veda says Shravana. Manana is settling it down, removing the questions. Samshaya nivritti, they say. Jnana prapti. Shravana is jnana prapti. Manana is samshaya nivritti. Ask questions. You see the entire Upanishad, it is asking questions. You see the entire Bhagavad Gita, it is asking questions. You see Arjuna, even in the war front, Arjuna was a sincere student. He asked 19 questions in the Bhagavad Gita. So asking questions, many times the same questions. The answer comes from the same source. The same elucidation again and again comes from Krishna. But one should ask questions. One should not keep a doubt in the mind. Ask questions, clear that. Then your conviction deepens. Then the third stage is called Nididhyasana, which is turning around what you have learned. Through Shravana and Manana, what you have learned and accepted, it has become your conviction. Those thoughts, you turning them around in your mind, usually with the help of a mantra or a Parayanam. For example, many people by heart the Bhagavad Gita, chapter by chapter they by heart. So turning it around in your mind, that is called Nididhyasana. When you say turning around, it's not only that you sit quietly and do it, but discussions, the jijnasa that you do, the teaching that you do, all these come under Nididhyasana. The place is not important, even the posture is not important, but the thought should turn around in your mind. That is called Nididhyasana. And the Jnana Marga lays enormous emphasis on the fact that you go back to the spiritual knowledge again and again, even though you know it. Even though you know it, you return to that again and again, and that will settle the thing. It will become deeper and deeper until you realize. Therefore, the sadhakas will never give up this habit just because they know Bhagavad Gita by heart. They will repeat it. They will do what is known as Parayana. Yeah. So Shravanam does Ajnana Nivritti, that it gives you Jnanam. There's a consistent, systematic study under a competent guru for a length of time for gaining knowledge. That is said to be Shravanam. Mananam is Samshaya Nivritti, removal of intellectual obstructions between knowledge and conviction. Nididhyasana is Vasana Nivritti. This is the most difficult part. It doesn't happen just because you are intellectually convinced. Vasana Nivritti, how do you check Vasana Nivritti? If this knowledge is available for you at a critical moment, then it has become yours. You have assimilated. That is the effect of Nididhyasana. In a critical moment. For intellectually argument and other things, you may be able to do it very well, but it may not come to you at a time when you really need it in practice. So Nididhyasana means Vasana Nivritti. You're done with that. The Vasana is over. So it will not mislead you further. So that is called Nididhyasana. Removal of emotional obstructions by dwelling on the Vedantic teaching, listening, reading, writing, discussion, teaching, meditation, all these things. When your mind is focused on the knowledge, that is Nididhyasana. Yeah, Uttama Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari. If at all, when you are doing Nididhyasana, if your mind doesn't settle, doesn't accept, go back to Shravana and Manana. Go back to the fundamentals again. Many times you think that you know, but really it takes time to know. See, Arjuna said this in the Gita. At the end, when Krishna says, Itite jnanamakhyatam guhyad guhyataram maya vimrishyai asheshena yathechasit thakro. I have given you the knowledge. Now, analyze it critically and do as you want. Then he says, Stitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanantava. Arjuna says, my doubts are over. I'll do as you have bidden. But when the actual war starts, he doesn't do. So that is what the Nididhyasana has to do. He had asked questions, found answers to the questions, all these things are settled, but it has not assimilated into his system. The Vasana Nivritti had not happened, and that is why he started behaving like earlier. That is when Krishna loses his patience once. But mostly he doesn't lose his patience. But once he lost his patience. And he went after Bhishma and said, if Arjuna doesn't do it, I will do it, he said. Yeah. Now all these things will prepare the mind. This subtle Atman is to be known through the purified mind. That's what Mundaka Upanishad says. Chetasa. Yesho Anuratma. Anu means Sukshma, subtle. This Atma is Sukshma. It is to be known through Chetasa. Chetasa Veditavyu. Known through the purified mind, Chetasa, into which have entered the fivefold prana. She is describing, the Rishi is describing the pre-final state of the devotee. He says that, okay, your focus, your mind is entirely samadhana, entirely focused, into which entered the fivefold prana. It is energized. All the pranas are withdrawn to the mind, level of the mind. The mind is fully energized by the pranas, and the subtle body is pervaded by consciousness. To such a purified, serene mind, Vishuddhe, the glory of Atman is revealed. Vibhavatyesha Atma, the Vaibhava is glory. The glory of the Atman is revealed to such a mind which is prepared by Jnana, Manana, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. It has been softened, the earth is softened, and it is ready. And at a state when it is fully energized, the knowledge is revealed. Atman is revealed. It is said revealed because It is Atman who reveals himself. It is the Lord who reveals himself. In that sense, Atman is revealed. What are the obstacles? There are 4 types of obstacles listed in the literature. One is called Laya. Laya is torpidity, that you sit for meditation, but you go to sleep. Very often this happens, especially when you begin your sadhana. This is because of the predominance of tamas. Tamas is moha, tamas is ajnana, tamas is torpidity, torpor. Okay. The second one is called distraction. It's called vikshepa. We have discussed vikshepa earlier. Vikshepa is turbulence which will direct the mind externally. Our mind is naturally extrovert. The entire equipment is extrovert. Indriyas are extrovert. It is very difficult to turn it inwards. But all sadhana happens inwardly, subjectively. You close your mind, close your eyes, turn inwards. But you may close your eyes, indriyas are closed. You may be sitting, your karmendriyas are under control, your jnanendriyas are closed, yes, but your mind may not be controllable. It can start going in different directions, especially with the help of memory. It can go to kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsara, any of them. That is called vikshepa. The third one is called kashaya. Kashaya is attachment. Attachment to some experience, some severe experience in the past has remained in the mind as unresolved problem. That becomes kashaya. Those who have experienced know this, what is kashaya. And the mind keeps returning to it again and again and again and again, knowing fully well that it is a waste of time. But mind is unable to grapple with that. So the experience could be like a knife on your back. If the knife is not removed, you tend to try to remove it. By hand doesn't reach. Then you start rubbing it against the wall. That will only hurt you more. It is that kind of thing which is called kashaya, which is an obstruction for spiritual growth. This is one place where it can cut you sharply. Especially if you start gaining, because of the partial success, you start gaining powers. Together with kashaya, it can lead you astray. The fourth one is called rasaswada. At different stages, you start enjoying it more and more. In fact, in the Anandavalli of Taittiriya Upanishad, he talks about the different levels of Ananda, of joy. He starts from a unit of 1. And then he says, this is Manushya Ananda. Then he defines what is known as Manushya Gandharva Ananda. Then he defines what is known as Gandharva Ananda. Then he defines what is known as Yaksha Ananda. Then he defines what is known as Devananda. Like that he goes on stages and then finally defines a level which is 10 to the power of 20 into this one Manushya Ananda. And then he says Brahman is beyond that. He raises the levels, defines it higher and higher, and then says it is beyond that. The point I'm trying to say is that a little success in meditation will give you a lot of joy. And you may think that this is it. And you may stay there stuck. This is called rasaswada. At that point, you start enjoying. You enjoy power, powers will come, siddhis will come, and joy also will come. One can get stuck with that. So it is a guru's job to tell you that don't get stuck there. Reject it like this. In fact, in Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada Acharya says this, these things will keep on happening, but reject them. Reject them until you reach the final stage. Reject, he says. The same teaching Ramana Maharshi also gives, and same teaching Kanchi Paramacharya also gave. Don't use these powers like this. In fact, there was one of the stories which I read in the website. a gentleman writes that he was standing on the queue to meet Paramacharya, and there was a long queue. In front of him, there was another person who was a magician. So they started talking to each other and learned that he's a magician and he has come, and there was nothing in his hand. Everybody else were carrying something, some meat, fruit, something. But this gentleman did not have anything. Then when this man asked, why didn't you bring anything? And he said that I'll produce it right now. I don't have to bring. I'll produce it here, he said. Then as he reached Paramacharya, he produced by magic, produced a bouquet and handed it over to the Swami. Acharya just looked at it and it reduced to ashes. This is what the man said. The writer says this. I saw it reduce into ash. Magic has produced it, but Paramacharya looked at it, it reduced to ash. Then the Acharya asked him, how long you have been doing this? He said, I have been doing it for so many years. Then he said, don't waste your energy on this. No rebuke, no anxiety, no rebuke. Very quietly he said, don't waste your time on this. Do something good for the public so that your karma will reduce. So the powers have to be used with great discrimination, great care, great viveka. The same thing Ramana Maharshi also used to say. Often Sri Ramana would take a round to that temple or to the ashrama or to the mountain. So many devotees would just follow him when he was on a walk. So one day one of them asked Maharshi, why don't you do miracles? Many others do it. You are not doing any miracles. Ramana just smiled. He did not reply. The next day, the same devotee was accompanying him. Ramana showed a tree, a jackfruit tree, in which there was a mango. And he showed him, is this a miracle? And the devotee was very impressed. He said, don't waste your time on this. Think how can you reduce your karma. This is the path which normally people take. This is what the gurus will normally do. Hold your hand and guide you to the final destination, which may be very far away. Okay. Now the last stage is Deva and Asura. This is the difficulty. This is called the fundamental legend by Sri Aurobindo. This occurs in Chandogya Upanishad, but Sri Aurobindo says that it illustrates a point very well. So a sadhaka should remember this, that what could differentiate a Deva from Asura. It is said that the story goes that Prajapati, the Guru, Prajapati announces the glory of Atmavidya to all and sundry. He told it to the Devas, he told it to the Asuras. The self, which is free from evil, free from decay, free from death, free from sorrow, free from hunger, and free from thirst, that is to be sought after. With true desires, honest intentions, that which one must understand. The one who seeks it understands and attains all worlds and fulfills all desires. So declared Prajapati. So now the Devas and the Asuras both were interested in this, where all desires are fulfilled. Look at the word. Attains all worlds, that is all heavens, and fulfills all desires. So everybody wanted this. So the Devas said that let us send a representative to learn this Vidya, Atma Vidya. They sent Indra, and the Asuras sent Virochana, their king, Virochana. So Indra and Virochana went to Prajapati and sought Atma Vidya from him. Prajapati said, yes. You want to know this? Yes. You want to know? Sincere? Yes. Then stay in the ashram. So they stayed down. It went on for 32 years before Prajapati opened his mind to them And he gave brief instructions to the two disciples. He said, at the end of which the Guru said that all that is seen with the eyes is the self. This entire world that you see is the self. That's what he said. So the disciples were confused. They asked, what do you see in the water or in the mirror? Which of these is Atman? He said, it is he that is perceived in all these. And then he said, you look into water and see whatever you see there, that is the self. So Prajapati asked them to look into the cup of water and describe what they see, and then said, that is the self, the immortal, the fearless, that is Brahman, which pacifies the heart. They both went away satisfied. 32 years they had spent to gain this knowledge, they went away. Prajapati, looking after them, said, without having perceived and without having known the self, they both have gone away. And whoever of the two holds on to their doctrine will get destroyed. And what happened? Virochana went, satisfied in his heart, went to the Asuras and proclaimed. He said, the self alone is to be worshipped, the self alone is to be attended upon, and it is only by worshipping the self and by attending upon the self that one gains both worlds, this as well as the next. When he says self, he was referring to the image that he saw, and the image depicted all the indriyas. He said the indriyas are the self, and Virochana and his clan, they indulged in unrestrained satisfaction of indriyas, indulgence of indriyas, indriya sukha. They are known as asuras. Asuhu means indriya. Asura means the one who attaches paramount importance to sensuality, and they remained there. What Prajapati says is they were to be destroyed. They would be destroyed. Whereas Indra went, and a little later he began to get a doubt. He said, is this the self? He said that if my body, if I take it as myself, he came back to Prajapati and said, I am not satisfied by this. You are not satisfied? What is your doubt? He said, as when the body is adorned, the reflection is adorned. When the body is well dressed, it is well dressed. When the body is clean, it is clean. In the same manner, when the body is blind, it would be blind. When the body is one-eyed, it would be one-eyed. When the body is crippled, it would be crippled. When the body is perishes, it would also perish. How can that be Atman? That was the question that was. Prajapati was very happy. He said, I can tell you that, but stay here for another 32 years. Indra accepted, and he stayed for another 32 years. At the end of that, Prajapati gave an instruction that what you see in the dream, the dreamer is the self. Indra went back with this knowledge, but before he reached these people, he began to doubt this knowledge, the veracity of this statement. Then he returned to Brihaspati again with Samit in hand and asked Brihaspati, what happened? He said, if the dreamer dies, if the dreamer weeps, does the Atman also weeps? Can that be the Atman? He said, that is the point. You stay on here for another 32 years. So Indra stayed one more 32 years. And then he said, that which is one goes to the deep sleep, then nothing exists. He is in a perfect peace, and that is self. Then Indra accepted this and went back, but again began to doubt. Came back and said, if nothing exists, even he doesn't know he is he, and he doesn't know anything else other than he, can he be the Atman? Then the Prajapati said, that is the point. Now you stay on for another 5 years. And he stayed on for another 5 years, and Prajapati enlightened him that it is not the waker, not the dreamer, not the sleeper, but the Sakshi, the fourth one, Chaturtham Manyante. It is a Sakshi, that is the Atma. Sa Atma sa Vijnaya, says Mandukya Upanishad. So here it says, this is the Atman. He gives him Atman knowledge, self-knowledge. It took 105 years for Indra to gain this knowledge, but he gained it at last. But Virochana did not gain it. That is the message of the Jnana Marga. It is difficult, it is not simple, but it is worth making the effort, and one has to be cautious not to get trapped by the Rasaswada, trapped by the Siddhis, trapped by, more importantly, by the ego. And it is here that you need the support, help from the Lord himself to lift the final wheel of Maya. Yeah. So, we will conclude it here with a statement from the Upanishad. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. Brahman is bliss. Na alpe sukhamasti. The small is not bliss. The infinite alone is bliss. The finite is not bliss. Bhumaiva sukham. Bhumahatveva vijijñāsitavya. That is the student saying, in that case, I want to know the Brahman. The same Upanishad says, Yo vai bhuma tad amrutam. Atha yad alpam nan tad martyam. Martyam means mrityu. Something that changes, something that is transient is called mrityu. So at alpam tad martyam. That is yo vai bhuma tad amrutam. That's what the message of Jnana Kanda, the entire set of Upanishad keeps saying this. And in the Kaivalya Upanishad, one of the very, very poetic, very beautifully presented Upanishad, it says, Sarva Bhutasthanaatmanam, Sarva Bhutani Chatmani, Sampashyan Brahma Paramam, Yati Nanyena Hetuna. Seeing the Atman in all beings and seeing all beings in one's own Atman. Sarva Bhutastham Atmanam, Sarva Bhutani Chatmani. It's a paradox. Antar Bahishcha Tat Sarvam. Sampashyan Brahma Paramam Yati Nanyena Hetunam. Unless you see Sampashyan Brahma Paramam, unless you see Brahman, that is realized Brahman, there is no other go for this to the end of this journey. And the end of the journey depicts Mayeva Sakalam Jatam, Mai Sarvam Pratishtitam, Mai Sarvam Layam Yati, Tat Brahma Advayam Asmi Aham. Tat Brahma Advayam Asmi Aham. Everything emanates from me. The whole creation emanates from me. The whole creation rests on me. And the whole creation dissolves into me. That Advaya Brahma I am, says the Rishi. And this is said to be the final stage of realization. There are several stages which they mention. This is said to be the final stage when one identifies himself completely with Brahman, which is this world and beyond. Yes, I have finished the Yoga Marga or the Jnana Marga as explained in the Upanishad as well as in Bhagavad Gita. If there are any questions, I would like to hear.
Okay, thank you, sir. So anyone with questions? Vivek, looks like, do you have a question? Vivek? Okay. Anyone with a question, please use the raise hand option. Kulkarni, sir?
Yes, yes, please.
No, I think Ravish has a question. Ravish, please go ahead.
Okay. Namaste, sir. Happy Teachers' Day
Yeah.
to you. My question is, I wanted to get some more clarity on Bhakti Yoga and what constitutes Bhakti, or what does it actually mean, or some more details on it.
Yeah. See, I am not in a position to give you the details of Narada Bhakti Sutra or things like that, because I have not yet studied them. But Bhakti, as I understand, is surrender. Essentially, surrender to the Lord. All actions that I do is surrender to you. And an emotionally connected, connection to the Lord all the time. That I would call as Bhakti. So in the case of Karma Yoga, we say, what is Bhakti? It is surrendering the fruits to the Lord. In the case of Jnana Yoga, what is Bhakti? That you are the ultimate target, ultimate goal of life. I want to come to you. Please help me to come to you. That is Bhakti. So in Narada Bhakti Sutra and other things, they talk more about the emotional connection. How you can really connect. You can train yourself to connect. Deepen your devotion. They talk about that. So as of now, that's all that I can say.
Okay. One follow-up on that. So I think Swami Vivekananda mentions this quite often, isn't it? Is that, and his perspective on Bhakti is also the same as that you said, or what is Swami Vivekananda's viewpoint when he talks about Bhakti Yoga in general?
You're asking me?
Yeah. I have not studied, so I just wanted to know.
No, I do not know. Someone else may answer this.
Okay.
I'm not in a position to answer that. Yeah, any other point? Any other comment? Satyabodha?
Sir, namaskara, sir. Namaskara.
Ready. Namaskara.
No questions. My regular device was not working, so I could not join early. So I joined late. I just wanted to wish a happy Teachers' Day to you. And it was very apt that on this day you talked about Guru Acharya. Very nice. It was very good to hear those things on this particular day. Sir, wish you a happy Teachers' Day for it.
Thank you so much and wish you the same.
Thank you.
Okay, then shall we wind up?
Yes, sir. Let us end it with the Shanti mantra.
Yeah. Om Sarve Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Prabhat Bhave. Om
Shanti.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you very much, sir. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.